It's your boy Tommy D, the nonprofit sector and nectar. Extra long pause on that one this morning. I thought it would give me an opportunity to breathe. Namaste. Namaste in the attic. That's what I'm going to do. Listen, here's the deal. Every single Friday morning, I make that trek up from the kitchen, 2 flights up just below the roof in my attic. That's what I do. This represents, I'm looking at my spreadsheet that I keep, and this represents 137 episodes. This will be the 137th episode of something that was an idea I had. It was an idea I had, and it was an idea I walked around talking about for 2 years. I'd encourage you, if you have an idea, don't walk around and talk about it for 2 years with the idea. Do the thing. Try it out. What it's done for me is it's given me the opportunity. Philanthropy and Focus is the name of the program, if we haven't said that yet. But Philanthropy and Focus has given me the opportunity to connect with very important leaders of very important organizations that are having the important conversations. And on this show, we have a conversation. I help these nonprofit organizations and their leaders tell their story and amplify their message. And when I say I help them tell their story, these are the stories of these organizations. I just happen to have a platform. Maybe I'll ask some inquisitive questions, and I do my best to get the word out on what these organizations are doing. This is spawning into something totally new where I want to go out. I'm going to do a road show. I have a young man who's in a film program in City School in New York City. And we're going to be doing something. I'm going to go on the road, and I'm going to do, a quasi episode of Philanthropy and Focus plus a day of service and turn it into some sort of TV show. So, it's just going to be fun. And I'll tell you that just to share with you, if you have an idea, go do the thing, and maybe you'll get it right. And maybe it'll be perfect. Probably won't be, but maybe it will. But it's going to you're going to iterate things. You're going to try different things, and it'll evolve, and it'll spawn into other things and other shows if you're doing a show, or other conversations or other options. It's all about creativity. We have one life. Before I got here, I took 20 minutes, and I drove over to the water, not too far from where I am, and I just sat there looking at the sailboats in the water, to just get inspired for this conversation we're going to have today, and just get inspired for the day. We have such an opportunity each day to create. And I was listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza this morning before I even got started and before I went to the water. And I think about that, thinking about ourselves as a vision of the future, not a memory of the past, a vision of the future, right? Think about that. What do you want to create? So we'll leave that there. I want to create a lot of things. We'll talk about that on some other show maybe, or just text me and I'll just tell you about the things I want to create. This show, Philanthropy and Focus, has become a mission. It's become a journey that I'm on. There's a couple things a couple of shout outs I want to make even before we get started, and before I introduce, why don't I say hello to my new friend, Ann Morrison Pasella, before I even make some of these other things I want to do. Ann Morrison Pasella, Executive Director, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention of Long Island. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
Good. You sound incredible. I'm glad you're here today. Do you know Yolanda Rabano Gross?
I do not.
So Yolanda Rabano Gross is the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Options for Community Living out in Ronkonkoma. And I just want to shout her out because she's a good friend of mine, friend of the show. She is being recognized in an article in Social Magazine for her great work and running this organization, $24 million organization. And, got her master's in social work from Yeshiva University. She had a master's in healthcare administration from Hofstra. And that organization, Options for Community Living, works with people experiencing homelessness, substance abuse challenges, as well as living with HIV and AIDS. So, probably a population that, at times could be supported by some of the work that your organization is doing as well. So we'll have to make that connection. So, that's what it came up on Facebook last night. I wanted to shout her out. I know we have some friends in common, and I didn't know if we had her in common at all, but we'll make that happen because I think it would be good. All right.
Actually, they do support our organization and have a large walk team, either at our East End walk or our Jones Beach walk every year. So I didn't recognize her name, but her employees and her organization actually are a big supporter of ours.
All right, right on. Okay, cool. We'll have to get top to the top, very important top officer, very important top officer. I used to read this book. I forget the guy's name was Anthony. I think it was Anthony Parinello. And he had this book called Selling to Vito. And Vito was not just some mafia, kingpin kind of guy. Vito was an acronym for very important top officer. So I want to connect you two at some point. All right. without further ado, let's get into this program, because last week, I believe it's the 10th through the 16th, is Suicide Prevention Awareness Week in the month of September. So, I want to know about you. I want to know about your background. So I don't want to jump too quickly into the organization and things just yet. But what I will say is, tragically, when I hear someone has taken their life, I feel for that person and just say, how much pain were they in? And that's what always elevates for me. How much pain were they in? I see some things on Instagram where people make these posts about their young or their middle-aged spouse is no longer with us because they've taken their life, and it seemed like everything was great, and it seemed like the person was like had a wonderful dinner that evening or something, and it would just, we never know. I'm going to get on this and then we'll pivot for a second, but gang, I'm leaning in and looking at you. We don't know what other people are going through. We must reach out. We must connect. And the thing that prevents these things, and I know this from an addiction perspective, the things that support and pull people away from addiction is connection. It's relationships. It's people reaching out. And I saw you yesterday afternoon, and I wasn't going to make a big deal and say what I told you, and when I saw you yesterday, but I got this chip yesterday. This chip. It says, to thine own self be true. 13 years. I have not had alcohol in this body in 13 years. And I tell you that all not for the applause and the congratulations, although I understand it is a big accomplishment, 13 years. But I tell you that because we all need support. We all need connection. We all need relationships. Second ever episode. I've probably said this on 30 episodes of this show. Dr. Larry Grubler was on this program from Transitional Services for New York, TSINY. They serve 4,000 individuals with different levels of mental health challenges each year. And he said, Tommy, we all need support at different times. And that resonates with me back from the second week of January of 2021 when he came on this show, and it stays with me. So I tried to tell you all, make the phone call, reach out, check in on people, please. It's life-saving stuff, right? And what do you say to that?
That's exactly the message that we try to tell everyone, is connection is so important, and knowing that you're not alone, right? We all have mental health and physical health. It's intertwined, and people need to understand that when somebody's mental health might be suffering, that they need connection, they need people to support them, and they absolutely should reach out.
We must. And what took you on this journey to the nonprofit sector? We're going to get into the work what you do for AFSP of Long Island, which, for folks who are just checking in, stands for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention of Long Island. What was it in your younger years that drew you to say, I'm going to work in this social field? I want to be with people.
So I started my career working for a big banking organization. When I went to Hofstra University, had a business degree. Typical, I'm going to climb the corporate ladder, and I started doing that.
Yep.
And I worked in that industry for about 10 years. I had my first child. Mm-hmm. And I went back to work after I had my first son. I have 4 sons, but I had my first son and went back to work, and quickly realized that I give working parents a lot of credit, because trying to juggle a career and raising children is not easy. And for me personally, I felt like I wasn't doing either one of them very well when I was trying to juggle them. So I took a step back. I first started working part-time, and then actually, when I was pregnant with my second son, decided that I wasn't going to work at all. But during the time that I was not working, which was 10 years, I took 10 years off from my career, I started volunteering for the March of Dimes, because in my previous position, I was working with them on a corporate level. And when I left the corporate world, they had asked me to stay on as a volunteer. I found the work very, very rewarding. Being the mother of 4 young sons, I had 4 sons in 5 years, so it was not easy.
Wow. I know. Yeah. Let me tell you something. So So my oldest is 13, my youngest is 8, and there's 2 in the middle. So I always say we had 0 children, and then 5 years later we had 4 children. So like that, I'm with you. I understand it, and living it now is difficult. Living it then was difficult. It's just challenging, right?
It was very challenging, but so I found the work that I was doing at a volunteer level personally was very rewarding because it got me out of mommy brain. I was able to get out and actually use my brain and do so. I was involved with helping to plan their walks and got very involved. My youngest are twins. When they went back to school, I got a call from the woman I had been volunteering for there, asking me if my babies were in school yet. And they were desperate for somebody to come in part-time to help them out. I actually wasn't ready to go back to work. It was the first time that I had some free time in 10 years, but I did. And I started part-time, eventually moving to full-time, taking over the director role. And for me, I just found that it was very rewarding working in the not-for-profit sector because although I work hard, and I probably work harder in not-for-profit than I ever did in the corporate world, but it's very rewarding because instead of making a corporation money or, lining the shareholders' pockets with dollars, I feel for me, I need the work I'm doing. If I'm taking time away from my family, from my friends, from myself, it needs to matter. It needs to make a difference in me. So that's how I really became passionate about working in not-for-profit.
I love that. I get it. I mean, so we founded something called the Nonprofit Resource Hub. Gang, if you don't know what that is and you aren't in nonprofit, go to nonprofitresourcehub.org. It's a trade organization or trade association. We founded on behalf of the sector. And I had a meeting earlier this week with some of our partners. We have what we call associate members and nonprofit members. There's no charge for a nonprofit organization to be a member, but you get access to all sorts of resources like the conferences we do and the webinars and the education. And really, we have these associate members who are what I would call best in breed in certain industries. My firm, one of the founders, Vanguard Benefits, one of my partners, Ed Probst, and I are very involved with sort of directing where the organization is going. And we were on a call earlier this week, and people were just mentioning, Ann, what you just said. I want to feel impact. I want to know and these are all business people again, right? So, and when I say that, I mean, they are for-profit business people, everybody. I know nonprofits are businesses. I know that. I'm with you on that one, gang. I got it. But I say these are, business, not for-profit business people. I said, gang, look, we all could have decided we wanted to serve and work with hedge funds. Could have done it. Some people like to sell into that market. No disrespect. It is what it is. I mean, but, I know when we work as an agency, Vanguard Benefits, with our nonprofit clients, we see real impact. I know what I do on this program. I see organizations making change, feeding those who need food, clothing those who don't have access to clothing, serving and getting homes for people who are experiencing homelessness, and certainly saving lives for people who need connection and relationships and support. And that is what the nonprofit sector does. We are going to go to a quick break, and we'll pick it up right where we were about your career. The show is called Philanthropy and Phocus. And Morrison is here from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And the nonprofit sector connector is here because, well, it's my show. We'll be right back.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mara Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 1 p.m. Eastern on Fridays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
What really drives success in business? Introducing Intangify, the show that explores the intangible assets that create value and growth. I'm Matthew Asbell, your host and an attorney focused on innovation. Join me Fridays at noon Eastern to discover how innovation, culture, and other intangibles shape thriving companies from startups to established businesses. We'll share strategies to unleash your business's true potential. Tune in live on talkradio.nyc Fridays at noon Eastern and Intangify your business today.
Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
And we are back. We're back, baby. Your boy, the nonprofit sector connector. And I'm checking in. I look at Facebook and my boy, Mick Collins, you know, the plastic man, he calls himself, is out there putting up all these posts and things like that for me on Facebook. So thanks, Mick Collins. I love you. Pay it forward processing. You know, we agree on a lot of things, except we don't agree on our baseball teams, but that's a whole nother thing. Let's go Mets, maybe next year.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Are you a Yankee fan in?
Yes, I am.
All right. So my buddy Mick Collins, who I'm riffing with over here, is a Yankee fan, and he was named after the Mick. He was named after Mickey Mouse. So wait a while. Hang on a second. Why are you a Yankee fan? What's the story there? Let's do that for a couple minutes.
My grandmother, who I never met, she died before I was born, but she was a big diehard Yankee fan, and it kind of just got passed down. I have a Yankee tattoo on my ankle. I can't show you now.
Wow.
Many of my dogs, I've had a Jeter, a DiMaggio. I currently have a Munson. Yeah, so
how's that? Mick Collins, what do you think about that? If you're not posting things on Facebook, I don't find out these questions about Ann Morrison. I was with a friend of mine, and now we're gonna riff. I was with a friend of mine. We played golf the other day in the Bayside Business Association, where I sit on the board. It's where my business partner Ed Probst is the president of the board. And the funny part about it is 20 years ago when I was working at ADP, I went to the Bayside Business Association, and it's how I met my two business partners, Ed Probst and Vinny Blasi, Vanguard Benefits. It was called Vanguard Insurance Agency at the time. But I met them through the Bayside Business Association. And all those 20 years ago, we talked about being in business together, and now we are. So it's kind of funny how that happened. One of the guys who I'm playing golf with the other day, he'll probably punch me in the nose, but he can't probably catch me. But my friend John DiBiase was the former executive director of Anabic, which is a nonprofit organization in Bayside, Queens. John has a tattoo on his ankle. It's the original St. John's Redman. Way before there was a red storm, there was the Redmen, and he has that the Native American, I'll say, on his ankle. So I don't have any ankles. I don't have any tattoos on my ankle. In fact, I don't have any tattoos, period, at all. I've never gotten one. But that's a whole different show. I think we'll call that What the Ink. That's a different show. That's not this show. Oh my goodness. Mick Collins says freaking awesome. He loves the names of your dogs, obviously. Yeah, Jeets. All right, let's do this. Let's get back into it. So your career, obviously business, you're raising the boys, you get drawn to this March of Dimes. I knew the executive director, and I'm trying to remember her name. She moved down to Florida, and I can't remember her name for the life of me, here on Long Island. It's a long time ago. It'll come to me, but it's a funny story, and then we'll get back into this. I had joined a committee for the March of Dimes, and we got to go to the NICU and see babies and stuff like that. It's going back about 10 years ago. And I didn't, they were looking to figure out who the honoree was going to be for the event. And I'm so naive at the time. I'm not the nonprofit sector connector. I barely know how to spell, 501c3 at the time, right? And I'm going, I'm like, I don't understand. You tell me you want to honor somebody. What's the big deal? Why wouldn't they accept the honor? Right now, you and I know, and everybody else is laughing like, well, Tommy D, it doesn't just mean you get a trophy. It's obviously, and now knowing it, and now I always ask, and I'll be an honoree in October at an event for the Dominic A. Murray Memorial Fund. My friend Melinda Murray Nyack runs that organization, and her son tragically died at 17 of sudden cardiac arrest on the campus of on the basketball court at SUNY Farmingdale out here in Long Island. But I always ask going into it, eyes wide open, what are your expectations of an honoree? Because I don't want to let down expectations, and at the same time, I want to make sure I can manage expectations. So we're getting on a tangent, but I think it's food for thought. Like, an honoree is a relationship, it's a partnership. It's not, hey, here's a plaque, great job. It's right. Maybe you could jump.
No, it's exactly that. It's using your connections and influence in the community to bring new donors, new funding. It's raising money. It's raising money for that organization. So, they look to honor people who have those connections and who have a strong so you would be a perfect person, right? People who have a strong following and don't want to say no to you. They're going to come to the dinner. They're going to make a donation because they love Tommy D.
Well, that's the danger of being Tommy D, I must say, to be honest with you, because I do get tapped every so often. So, but that's how I got connected to nonprofit many, many years ago in March of Dimes. So, all right, let's do this. So let's get back into the flow if we could, because so you get drawn to this work, you're about the impact, and it wasn't just, it was March of Dimes, it was American Heart as well.
Yes. So I transitioned into the Heart Association, the same role. I was the director of the walk. And I love the work that I was doing. Just having that impact in the community, whether it was for premature children, whether it was for heart disease. And I received a phone call. I was not looking for another position, but I received a phone call. They were looking from a head recruiting firm. They were looking to fill the position of the director on Long Island for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. She was retiring. And I remember taking the call and thinking, I don't know, let me listen to what they have to say. My childhood friend, I'm still friends with her, lost her brother to suicide in 2011. So the cause resonated with me. And then the more I spoke with this recruiter about what AFSP did, the more drawn I became to the organization, and continued with the interview process. And this is kind of funny. I'll tell you. So when I finally went through the different rounds of interviews, and I really wanted the job. It was something that I was very, very excited about. Yeah. Being with March of Dimes and the Heart Association, a larger, more established, I don't want to say, AFSP has been around since 1987, but larger organizations. AFSP is still pretty much grassroots. Mm-hmm. And I really was excited about the opportunity to start from the ground up and really build their presence here on Long Island. And when I went for my in-person interview, their headquarters are in New York City. You can see now I have purple hair. And
yes.
At the time, I had lots of colors in my hair.
Really? How many?
Yes. Oh, I've had peacock colors, multiple colors. I've done lots of different looks.
I want you to finish this train of thought, but I want to go back to that whole thing about colored hair. So let's try to get back there if we could. But so you go to the interview, you're in New York City.
Well, no. So the interview was, I actually had colored hair and I wanted the job so much that before I went for the interview, I went to my hairdresser and she stayed up till midnight with me and dyed my hair back the color brown that it was, because I did not want to not get the job and wonder if it was because of my hair. It was
because of the hair. I get it. I cut my hair, not in a long time, but I have cut my hair for a job or two in the past, because you're always, or you may always have that in the back of your mind going, did I blow it because of that? Is that the thing? Is that, and I don't know how many years ago was that you
that was 7.5 years ago.
Yeah. So I don't know if that matters so much anymore. I mean, I would probably still make the move you did, either cut my hair or color my hair, but I feel like the world is like more open, man. Like, I don't think we're ready for like a business guy with like dyed red hair or dyed purple hair just yet, who's wearing a suit. But like, I mean, as close as we get, I'm ready, because I'm losing my hair. So I want to go with a cool color before it all falls out. But so you go in there, you get the new do, and you go for the interview. That rhymes.
Yeah. So anyway, I obviously got the position. And so I've been with AFSP for 7.5 years. And I have to say it has been the most rewarding time of my career. I talked about wanting to get into not-for-profit, for making an impact. And this organization, I have seen, felt, and heard the impact that we're having. And I take great pride in the fact that myself and the volunteers, it's a volunteer-driven network, are responsible for making that happen here on Long Island. So it's been a really positive experience, talking about a subject that people really weren't comfortable talking about.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that piece, because people aren't, and I'm just trying to pull up the website so we can make sure we send people to the website as well. Things we're not comfortable talking about, right? We're still not, I think in a lot of ways. There's a stigma around the mental health conversation. That stigma is, I would imagine even more greater around the suicide conversation. We got to break down these walls though, gang. We got to have these conversations because we're saving lives when we have these conversations, and we're losing these wonderful, beautiful people that could have.
Well, you know, I tell people all the time, suicide prevention is mental health awareness. That's what it is, because 90% of people who die by suicide have an underlying mental health condition.
Yeah.
That tells you if we address mental health, that's suicide prevention. When we can have conversations about mental health openly and honestly, that's suicide prevention. It's not anything to be afraid of.
Yeah, I'm always careful when I say these things because I don't know most things. So I'm very careful what I'm about to say. But I think like that's what this is. It's like we got to get out there and be in front of the conversation, you know, because to your point, it almost, again, we all have our ups and downs, and I'm not going to get too personal, but I will say, you know, I said earlier, when I find someone took their own life, I just feel for that person. Because it's a permanent solution to what was a temporary problem, and that's over now. We cannot get them back, right? We don't have that ability. So intervention, conversations, connection, that's all what it is. So I don't want to say I know why people do this, but I think part of it is a lack of connection, and they have no one to tell them how important their life is and how many people care and what an impact they're making, right? I mean, isn't that part of it, Ann?
It is. And, you know, just very quickly, you talked about Suicide Prevention Month, and we always have a different campaign that's going on during the month of September. And this September, the campaign is called Talk Away the Dark, right? And I'm just going to very quickly read to you what is on the website. It says, talking is the first step to preventing suicide. We might worry that saying the wrong thing will make it worse, so we end up not saying anything, even though a few kind words can make the difference in connecting someone to help or supporting someone who has experienced a suicide loss. It's time we shed a light on this leading cause of death. It's time we talk away the dark. And I absolutely love that.
I love it too. And I'm standing here with my eyes closed because I'm reflecting on there's an organization out of Long Island City, Queens. They actually come out of Ireland originally. It's called Solace House. And I walked into the light with them at least twice, where we get out to Long Island City and it's 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I guess the walk, maybe we start walking at 4 o'clock. I'm not sure what time the sun rises, but we walk and there's candles. I've done it as a volunteer and I've done it as a participant. And there's little tea light candles for like what must be miles throughout Long Island City. And we walk into the light. And as I close my eyes and listen to you read that, it's what I was feeling. It was that walking into the light. The sun is rising, because that's what it is. And God, man, I'd much rather piss somebody off by prying and talking to them than not being able to talk to them ever again. I mean, isn't that what this is? Like, oh my God. The website, I'm going to share the website as we, I think we're supposed to go to break. I'm lost in this. I'm so in this with you now, and Morrison Priscilla, that I'm just like, oh, Tommy, you're actually supposed to be on the show. Oh, sorry about that, gang. But this is life. This is what we have to talk about. These are the conversations we must have. I'll share the website when we go to break. And then I want to talk about some of the programs and things like what it's all about. But if you go to afsp.org, and then I'll share this for everybody. We'll share it on Facebook, but then /chapter /new-york-long-island. I'm sure it's probably easier way for you to get there, but I'll put them on Facebook under talkradio.nyc and Philanthropy and Phocus. And if there's an easier way, if you want to tell me how to get there more easy than what I just explained. And
yeah, it's just afsp.org/Long Island.
There it is. Perfect. You heard it from the source. We will be right back.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be frank about health to advocate for all of us.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Phocus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Join Tommy in his attic. That's right, gang. Join me in the attic. I mean, but like literally don't literally join me in the attic. Don't show up. There's no room. But join me virtually in the attic. And Morrison, Executive Director of the Long Island chapter of American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. 25 years of experience in the nonprofit industry. We've talked a little bit about March of Dimes, American Heart, and really living out, I would say, the most impact at this organization, it sounds like, from what we've talked about so far. I want to talk about programs, but I also, from my notes, you know, I know it's a big focus for you, DEI, and I'll add in B, and I'll add in accessibility but, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, accessibility, this whole lot, you know, because it isn't just race, gender, sexual orientation. We're also talking about ability. Right. So we talk about that a lot when I talk about the intellectual developmental disability space, where I do a lot of work. But that's a priority for you. And from what I'm reading here, and reaching these diverse communities, underserved populations, things like that. So if we could weave that part of the conversation into the impact and programs, if that's okay.
Yeah. And that's something that over the last several years, AFSP has really dedicated a lot of their efforts to, because what we know is that underserved communities are affected differently at a higher rate for suicide. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. Sometimes it's, you know, not having access to resources. Sometimes it's because of cultural difference, right? Mental health was not talked about in certain cultures. So it's really, you talked about a stigma before. In certain populations, it's a really big stigma. And we're starting to see the younger generations in culturally diverse populations understanding the importance of changing that and bringing these conversations, because they're, again, dying by suicide at a higher rate than other populations. So, you know, AFSP's mission is to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. We can't do that unless we understand and really figure out how we reach these underserved populations and change those conversations with programming, with access to resources, with inclusion. So it really is an important piece of what we do.
I want to underscore something, because sometimes I use the wrong words and terms and things like that. And I just heard you use a phrase, dying by suicide, you know, and I think it's important, the word, I strike that. I know it's important, the words we use, it's critically important. And they used to say committing, as if it was a crime, right? So can you talk a little bit about terminology? Because I want to make sure that even we were talking about, you and I, before we started the show, we talk about gender pronouns and talk about inclusion from that perspective, as you know, when people put in the parentheses and things like that. But also, so talk about words for me, because
and you're right. Thanks for bringing that up. That's one of the pieces that we go over in our community education programs, that language matters and how we talk about suicide matters. And we try to model the appropriate term. So I will never correct somebody who says, oh, I had a loved one who committed suicide. However, I will tell people that we are trying to change that term, because you're exactly right. Committed has a very negative connotation, right? Somebody commits a crime. And, years ago, right, it was a crime.
Right.
So trying to get that negative connotation out of people's mind, we say someone died by suicide.
Died by
They
suicide.
lost their life. They killed themselves. And we don't say they committed anything. You
Yeah.
wouldn't say that somebody committed cancer.
Right.
You wouldn't say somebody committed heart disease. They
Right.
died.
Yeah. And because that frames how we view this whole thing too, because if you say it, again, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and I don't have any clinical background, and I'm not a social worker. So I say this from a layman's perspective. And it's just like, if we realize that, and I said it up front, that when I hear this happens with someone, they felt, I have to assume, there is no other way out. That, no other way. There was no light. They couldn't find the light from the darkness. So to make it judgmental when really what they needed was help and support, right? Like if, and I go, here we go. I feel it. Here comes the soapbox. Like when we talk about mental health, and I've said it 100 times on the show, if I was to trip when I walk out of the attic later on and break my arm, I would go to the urgent care and then the emergency department or vice versa, whatever. I'd go get it sorted out and I'd have a sling, and 6 weeks later, I'd be good as new. Might affect my golf swing, but whatever. But like, the point is, I would get those services. We as a society on this planet have not done the right thing to support people when they have challenges of the mind, right? And that's the big thing. And that's the stigma piece, right? And that's what we need to continuously converse on and continuously change. One more point I want to make on this, because I think it's relevant too, is you mentioned the younger people in certain populations. I think younger people in general, when I talk to clients of ours, we own an employee benefits agency. A big part of what we talk about is mental health services, and the young people, when I say young, I mean in their 20s and 30s, who are just new to the workforce, will say, well, what type of mental health services do I get? Right? You see all these apps that are out there, whether it's meditation or whether it's counseling or whatever, that's there. They get it. That I don't think we got it before. That's to me a big, not even a glimmer of hope. That is a big old spotlight of hope. And what do you think?
Yes, I agree. And I love working with the younger generation, whether they be teens when we go into schools, or the new people in the workforce in their 20s, early 30s, because they do get it. And you're exactly right. We didn't. When I first started my career, there was no mental health services. People did not talk about mental health, and it absolutely, we need to create a culture that is smart about mental health. And when we do, and we're starting to do that, you talk about glimmer of hope. We're all about hope.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's demanding, and I've seen it in just even on Long Island itself, because of these new people, right? We talking about trying to find talented workforce, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
When you have a younger generation that's demanding certain things, companies are now paying attention to it. And so benefits wise, companies realize if you want to maintain and have employees who are staying, you need to offer them certain perks.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It comes up all the time in conversations that we're having with clients and prospective clients, whether they're in the for-profit sector, not-for-profit sector, because at the end of the day, if you're talking to somebody like me about employee benefits, it means you have employees. So it's irrelevant what type of business you're running.
Right.
Here's what I want to ask. Right now, somebody finds this information. How do they get to you all right now? They're having a challenge. They need to talk to somebody.
So, I mean, on our website, so we don't offer direct services. We are kind of like you are. We're the connector of connecting people to the resources that they need. But on our website, and I saw you scrolling it before, there's links to just about everything. If you've lost someone and you're looking for support, if you are looking to get involved, if you want to learn about research. So there's links there for somebody who has lost someone. There's links there for people who might be struggling. I don't know. There's been a big push. One of the things that we advocated for very strongly was the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the number 988. And I don't know if you've heard about that. I hope you have.
No, I'm looking at it on your website. It says, "Are you in crisis? Text 988 or text talk to 741-741."
Right.
So 988 or text talk TALK to 741-741.
So that number is really important. It was an 800 number, and you can still reach that number by an 800 number, but it was very, very people didn't know when they should call that number. Everybody had the assumption that it needed to be called by somebody who is in crisis. And yes, if somebody's in crisis, we want them to call that number. But the reality is that a lot of times when somebody's in a mental health crisis, they're not thinking about calling that number. So many times it's the people around them who are worried about them and they don't know what to do. They can also call that number and say, I'm worried about my son, my daughter, my husband, my loved one, a friend. This is what's happening. Where can I take them? What can I do? What are my next steps? And they're trained counselors. They are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that can direct you to the care that you might need. Sometimes if somebody we talked about connection, needing to feel connected. So sometimes there are people who might be struggling who feel very, very alone. They can call that number at any time and just talk to someone and feel that sense of connection. So that's one of the things that can be done. But again, there are links to lots of information on where people can get resources for whatever they're looking to for resources for.
And I'm looking on the website too. I'm going to share the page. So if you're watching on one of the streamings, because we're basically streaming on all different platforms right now. But you'll see here, afsp.org has all the information, blogs, people telling their real stories about their experiences with a loved one and things like that. Just, again, anything like this, it just reminds us that we're not alone in these scenarios, right? And, people have had similar, and I think, isn't that cathartic and consoling when we know that other people have been, and I'm talking about loved ones,
Yes.
who are having these challenges with.
Yeah, so I'm going to say that in addition to offering, people who are struggling, I think it's just as important that we understand that we need to offer support and understanding to people who have lost someone to suicide, because there's a big stigma associated with that too. It breaks my heart when I meet families who don't want to disclose how someone died because they don't want that negative connotation there, right? If their loved one died by cancer, they'll tell someone, I lost my sister to cancer. But if they lost their sister to suicide, sometimes they don't want to disclose that yet.
Because there's shame, whether it's appropriate, which I don't think it is appropriate, as we've just talked about, and we've established some guidelines here. So it's not, but however, that doesn't mean we don't feel shame and embarrassment when it happens. And or the other part, which I think is the survivor's guilt. Yes. What did I do? What could I have done? What didn't I say? And now you have to live with that. That's tough stuff, man. It really is. You have a walk coming up. Really, you have something going on this weekend and you have another event going on. When we come back, I want to dive more into that. We'll take a break in a sec here. But what I do want to call out is just the Long Island Walk in 2022, correct me if I'm wrong, but raised over $625,000.
Yes.
That's a lot of dough, everybody. $625,000. And your chapter was awarded Chapter of the Year for Large Market for 2022. Now, look, that's great. We all like to be acknowledged for what we do. And, it's nice, probably we're on stage with the step and repeat and all that stuff. However, I think from your perspective and mine is, what did those $625,000, that makes a big impact on the work you're trying to do, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it not only does it make a big impact, but I talked to you before about why I got into AFSP and wanting to make a difference in Long Island. So that to me was 7.5 years worth of work to get us to the point that we got there so that we could have a bigger impact. Yeah,
it's so special. It's so great. When we come back, believe it or not, this is how fast this program goes. When we come back, we're going to be talking about, what's upcoming. We'll talk about the walks. We'll talk about other things. And I want to talk about anything you want to put out there. If there's relationships you're looking for locally, if there's businesses you want to maybe partner up with, whatever that may be, it's sort of like, who do you need? How can we help? That sort of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And Morrison, and your boy, the one and only nonprofit sector connector, Tommy D. Right back.
What really drives success in business? Introducing Intangify, the show that explores the intangible assets that create value and growth. I'm Matthew Asbell, your host and an attorney focused on innovation. Join me Fridays at noon Eastern to discover how innovation, culture, and other intangibles shape thriving companies, from startups to established businesses. We'll share strategies to unleash your business's true potential. Tune in live on talkradio.nyc Fridays at noon Eastern and Intangify your business today.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
We're back. We're streaming all over the world right now. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, which I think is called X right now. We're on Twitch, we're on LinkedIn, all under talkradio.nyc. You want to get with Tommy D, you want to connect with me, you want to see what's going on in the nonprofit world, well, then reach out, tommyd.nyc on Instagram. That's the same thing on TikTok, although I don't really go on that TikTok. That's way too distracting for me, man. ADHD and TikTok for me, not a good fit. So you're probably not going to find me on there, but you can always hit me on email too, tommyd@philanthropyandfocus.com. And Focus, as you know by now, PHOCUS, Tommy D at Philanthropy and Focus. And then just follow what we're doing, gang. Let me know. I completed 60 days of service where that is done. As Howie Rose would say, put it in the books. I know you guys are Yankee fans. I know, but on the Mets, they say, put it in the books. Usually it's the season. We're putting in the books super early. Another conversation. But look, 60 days of service now complete. What does that mean? Here comes 70 days of service. We start back at 1. We're all ready to go. Reach out to me. Let's do some volunteering together. And Morrison, Priscilla, let's cut. Mick Collins just hit me on Facebook. He goes, the lightning round. I like to call this is the lightning round. This is my best game show guy voice. So let's do that. Let's hit us with what's coming up. Hit us with how we can help. Who do you want to meet? And even if there's some shout outs of people who've been very supportive, people and or organizations, hit them too. Let's do it.
Yeah. So we can't do what we do in the Long Island community without raising funds. And the funds we raise help to they help fund research, they help us with our advocacy efforts, they help with our education in the community, and they help with suicide loss survivors. So we have an event tomorrow, Sunday, our Out of the Darkness walk. It is at Smiths Point County Park. That walk has been happening for the last probably 5 or 6 years. It's a smaller walk on Long Island. We have probably about 300 people that will attend. It's going to rain on Sunday, but it's rain or shine, we're going to be there. Okay. And then we have the Out of the Darkness walk at Jones Beach, the one you mentioned before. That walk last year was the second largest fundraising walk for AFSP across the country, with over 425 walks happening. Wow. We expect about 4,000 people there. It's a very powerful event. And I have been a walk director, as I said, with 2 other organizations. I have never felt, I get chills every time we attend that walk. What is it connection though? Let's talk about that. Cause I felt what you were saying, and I understood it's a big deal, but why? What is it there? Because again, I think it's because of the stigmas that have been associated with asking for help, needing help, wanting support. So it's 4,000 people that are coming together to support those who have lost someone to suicide. They need support. Again, we talked about the shame that's associated with losing someone. And what is encouraging for me, that glimmer of hope for me, is that when I first started here, many of the people who are attending were there because they were honoring someone that they lost. And there still is a big population for that too. But more and more people are attending who are supporting someone who's struggling or who are struggling themselves. And to me, that's where the hope is, right? We want people not to be ashamed, to understand that you're not alone. So it's really, really powerful to come together and feel that support, the community, 4,000 people surrounding you, talking openly, sharing their conversations about mental health and suicide prevention. It gives me chills every single year.
What's the date on that one? Let's shout that out.
That one's October 22nd.
October 22nd, and that's at Jones Beach?
Yes. So
Yeah.
we're still, that's a month away. It's exactly a month away. And we are actively looking for people to continue to join that walk. We're looking for most importantly, I want to get companies, corporations, corporate teams involved. We raised $625,000 last year. The majority of that money was from individuals, grassroots people. We had about $70,000 in corporate sponsorship. I need more money in corporate sponsorship. We need corporations. Imagine if we started getting corporations involved and standing behind this cause, what that can do for that walk. Darby Dental has been a strong supporter. They're our presenting sponsor. They have been our presenting sponsor for the last several years. They're really the only large corporation that has been invested in that walk. Bethpage Federal Credit Union has invested in us before, but I can name them on one hand.
Yeah.
We need more corporations, and to get involved, sponsor that event, sponsor our International Survivor of Suicide Loss Day that we have in September. And in turn, we can bring to those corporations free programming for their employees. Talk Saves Lives. We talked about
talk about that. Let's hit that home, because you know what? Everybody's asking for mental health support. Everybody's asking for services. Let's do that. So let's think in terms of, again, I own a company with two partners, right? We do employee benefits. We're talking to business owners all the time. What can you bring in? Kind of a quid pro quo. Let's just call it what it is. They sponsor, you also bring in programming. What's that?
So the programming is really important, because that's how we talk to people. So we have a Talk Saves Lives, our signature program. We have several different models of it. We have a workplace program, an LGBT program, a senior program, working on a veterans program. But it basically, we can come into your company and do almost a lunch and learn. It's about an hour long. And we talk about what the warnings, what mental health is, what the warning signs of somebody's mental health deteriorating, what to look for, how to open that conversation, how to have an open and honest conversation. And they're awkward, they're not easy. But when we talk about people not being afraid to have that conversation, they happen. So we've gone into the workplace. We've done many of them. Over the last 2 years, more, COVID helped to really
Zoom it.
Yeah. It really did. So we can do these programs virtually. I do many of them virtually or in person. And I've never, ever had a company who has hosted these programs say, oh, we shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
It's very well received by their employees, because it's a topic that people are not used to hearing about or talking about. But we all, whether we're struggling ourselves or we live with somebody we're supporting, it to the employer, to the employee, it means a lot that their employer is understanding the importance about talking about this.
100%. And you know what? Even if an employer would like to talk about this, they're just other human beings, right? So they don't have the right training and understanding how to talk about this, even if they want to. That's why, gang, I tell you this only every Friday morning, nonprofits change the world. And if it wasn't for nonprofit organizations doing the work they do, well, then the stuff doesn't get done, right? Because you might be the best employer, you might be an employer of choice, and you might drive the revenue, and your people love coming to work. But this might be a piece that's missing, that you don't have that skill set, or your HR team. Not blaming HR. Not everybody can do this. This is different services. These are different conversations. That's why you partner up with an organization like AFSP of Long Island, and that's why maybe you sponsor the walk. And I'll share some information about the walk I'll stream it. What else? What am I going to do, Tommy? I'm going to share my screen. You keep talking about those programs, please, Ann. I'm going to share my screen.
So I mean, that's a big piece of what we do in for the Long Island community, and it's we're seeing more and more of it. We just we're able to, see, we have $171,000 raised. We have a long way to go. So we need to go
62 days. It says 60. Oh, no, it's something.
No, it's a month away. It's a month
away. It's a 1 month from today. As we sit here at 9:22, it's 10:22. I just saw no dogs allowed. So don't bring your dog to the beach that day. No dogs allowed at Jones Beach. Understand why. But let's go into it. So yeah, you can partner. You can make a team, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
And so gang, get your T-shirts together, the whole thing, right?
Yep, you can make a team, either a personal team, a company team. You raise funds. You can sponsor the walk. You can, again, even if you don't sponsor the walk, we can bring these, although I would love for you to do that, we can bring these educational programs into your workplace free of charge. These are what the funds that we raise help to do, is to bring those programs into the workplace.
I love that. We need to talk about that, as they say, offline, because, well, a couple of reasons. We're running out of time. And the other reason is it would be a long conversation. But I think it would make sense to see what my agency might be able to do, because it is on brand. It is on brand in the sense that, we're talking to employer groups only every day. It's what we do. And they're saying to us, we want mental health support. And we're talking about, EAP, employee. Oh my God, now I'm forgetting what EAP is. We talk about bringing in EAP programs and things like that, employee assistance programs. Thank you, Tommy. And they want these types of services, and it's education. So I think for me personally, as the big mouth nonprofit sector connector, put your money where your mouth is, put your relationships and your connections where it all should be. I want to do this with you, and I want to bring you into employers, whether they're my clients or not, whether they're just friends of ours. And I want to do the same thing, with Stephen Schatzman over at Long Island Coalition Against Substance Abuse, and I'm screwing up LICAD's acronym. But the point of it is because it's all about education. It's about getting in front of our young people. It's about telling them they have support. It's about telling them they have resources. I'm running out of time. And what else you want to tell them before we go?
That's it. I mean, we are very proud of what we're doing in the community. It's a much needed. You started asking me how I got into this. I am so excited to be able to see the impact that we have been able to have, how far this organization on Long Island has come in the 7.5 years that I've been here, but know that we have so much further to go. And it takes a village, the community, it's the corporations, it's the individuals, it's the schools, it's the business groups, all of us. None of us need to have a mental health degree. None of us need to be doctors. We can all save lives and absolutely all make an impact.
Yeah, never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world, because in fact, it is the only thing it ever has. This is one Long Island, but it is still one island, and we must work as a community. And you know what? It's one planet, it's one race, it's one species. We must work together and we must support each other. And that's what this show is about. And that's what my mission is about, is to help nonprofits get together with other nonprofits, with other business leaders, and let's make this world a better place. I always say this, no big deal. Just changing the world. Big deal. But it is a big deal. Of course, that's tongue in cheek, as they say. And Morrison Pasella, I got to send a shout out to our colleague Liz, who connected us. If it wasn't for Liz and I having a cup of coffee at Starbucks a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know what she said, and I said, I need to know her. And then that's how this all happens. It's all about relationships.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz. All right, everybody, make it a great day. And Morrison Pasella, thank you. Logan, thank you for your work behind the glass. See you guys next week.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.